In 2024, your host, Mark Smith, celebrated 7 years of the Microsoft Business Applications podcast. Now, we step into a transformative 2025 with a fresh new name. Welcome to the Microsoft Innovation Podcast. Our new name reflects a broader vision, exploring the intersection of people, business, technology, and AI. You'll also hear from me, Meg Smith, a bit more as we launch a new exciting series called The AI Show.
Welcome to the Power Platform Show. Thanks for joining me today. I hope today's guest inspires and educates you on the possibilities of the Microsoft Power Platform. Now, let's get on with the show. Today's guest is from Florida in the United States. She works at Hitachi Solutions America as a senior software engineer. She's a co-leader of the Power Platform UI and UX and Accessibility Global User Group. She is an experienced data specialist with the Power Platform, SharePoint, and Teams, and she's worked in the public sector for around 15 years. You can find links to her bio and social media in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the show, Cat.
Hey, thank you.
Good to have you on.
Now, I will say I'm no longer in the public sector, but I was in the public sector for close to 15 years.
Yeah, as in that's where you worked right before you were,
Yeah, before I made the jump to Power Platform.
I love it. I love it. Food, family, and fun, what do they mean to you?
Oh, food is one of my happy places. Pretty much anything and everything other than seafood, especially, considering I'm in Florida. You would think seafood would be a thing for me, but no, I got over that pretty quickly as a kid. Family, just spending time with my family, doing things, learning things, whatever. Traveling and all that, and fun traveling, and yeah.
Nice. And you obviously do a bit of travel for work as well, right? Were you most recently at the Power Platform conference in Europe?
No, I was not there at that one. I was trying to get to that one. Actually, I was most recently in Canada.
Yeah. What was that one? What's a Canada one?
That was actually for a work trip. It wasn't for a conference.
Okay.
Got to go up there and hang out with M. Darcy at a client's office for a day. And, just got to meet some really cool people from a company that I was semi-formally associated with in my public sector days. But getting to see them on a different side of things. So that was kind of cool.
Nice. How did you get into the Power Platform? How'd you get involved with it?
So it was actually through a mentoring relationship that I had with the CIO at FDOT while I was working there. Very first meeting that we had, we were talking about, what was it that I was interested in? What was I wanting to do with this relationship? How was I wanting to spend the next 6 months? And, kind of what was I working on at the time? And I was like, well, I was actually just in the middle of watching a Power BI video. And he was like, really? Would you be interested in a license? We happen to have one extra license right now. And I was like, yes, please. Spent the next month working in that, and then ended up presenting that to the statewide OIT meeting. And everybody just went crazy over it, thought it was the most amazing thing ever. And we ended up starting up a community of practice a couple of months later. So, yeah, it was that, and then straight into Power Apps and Automate.
Wow. So, sorry, where were you working at that time?
That was Florida Department of Transportation.
Excellent. The Florida Department. So you were in public sector and you started tinkering with Power BI and things just took off.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's really cool.
It went crazy. We were a Tableau agency for the longest time, and then ended up just wanting to see, what we could do with Power BI, and very quickly realized that we had so many more avenues available to us going the Power BI route than staying with Tableau. So we ended up, I think, starting out with 10 users in our community of practice. And by the time I left, which was about 2 years later, we had over 300 active users in our community of practice. So
that's amazing. So you've used a term now a couple of times, community of practice. What is that?
That was where we were basically teaching ourselves and teaching others within our organization, the platform Power BI. And then we eventually, because I pushed a lot on OIT, I was like, can we please make this a Power Platform community of practice? Power BI is great and all, but we are a SharePoint organization. Power Automate and Power Apps is integral in us, doing this. It doesn't make any sense for us to just focus on Power BI. Can we please? And so I finally, after enough asking and begging and poking and prodding the right people, I was able to get that to come into fruition. So we had a Teams group and then several channels dedicated to the various applications. And it's kind of like a Stack Overflow, except you don't have to try and dumb your information all the way down because you're working with people who know your organization and know your data. So it was nice because people could just go out there, drop a question, and people could respond that had any kind of information.
So just give us a highlights tour, whistle-stop tour of public sector to Hitachi.
So I presented at a Microsoft event that was specific for transportation organizations. And then I presented in a larger regional conference for the various tools that we were using in the Power Platform. And then shortly after that, I was presenting at the Microsoft Power Platform conference that took place in Orlando in 2022. At that point in time, I had a job offer from one organization. And in the middle of that conference, I had a job offer from Microsoft as well. And I was just like mind blown. One, the conference was amazing. But two, I had 2 job opportunities for the Power Platform at the end of this conference, and I had to make a decision. So weighed them out, looked at it, both organizations, and I said, thank you, Microsoft, but not right now. And so I went with the smaller organization. It was the MSP or what is it? Multi-services, something or other. I forget the nomenclature.
Okay. Yep.
Acronyms elude me. But did that for just about a year and a half before Matthew Devaney reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in coming to work with me over here at Hitachi? And I was like, sure, why not? So we did the interview. I talked with Joel Lindstrom, and he talks about you all the time. He has nothing but great things to say. And then, I've been there since April. So,
wow. So it is relatively new, the Hitachi piece.
Yeah.
Wow,
when I was at MVP Summit back in March, I had actually just left that organization that I went to start with. And then when I got back from MVP Summit, there was a couple more weeks, and then I started at Hitachi.
Wow. That's so cool. So if I was to ask you what's top of mind for you right now, we're, into the start of September. We've got Power Platform Conference coming up in Vegas. You've done your first half year. What's whirling around in your mind when you look at the next 6 to 12 months?
Probably it would have to be like a pro code version of Power Platform, Power Apps specifically. So, they presented that code view, and I think Yannick and myself both got super giddy. I think I sucked all the air out of the room when they announced that, because I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? We can just use YAML and do editing right in the browser? Like, this is insane. This is incredible. Please, can I have this now? So I've been super excited about that and all of the possibilities that come from that, because I prefer to build my apps in Visual Studio Code and then bring them back into the Canvas editor for fine tuning if needed.
Nice.
But it's just, I find it a lot easier because I can essentially make snippets of code, put those in there, and voila. Now I have, Canvas components.
That's very cool. In the intro, we talked about UI, UX, Global User Group. So it's interesting because you talk about working in Visual Studio and very much in potentially the code layer of things, but UI and UX is, very much at the experience layer, the presentation layer of an application. What are your thoughts in this space? What's happening? Tell us about that user group. Why should people get involved with it? And what are you seeing happen around this discussion area of UI and UX from the lens of the Power Platform? And I mean that in the broadest sense.
Yeah. So I've always kind of just been interested in accessibility. Just working in the public sector, it is a huge part of anything that I was doing when I was putting anything together to go out into the public. So it was always making sure that whatever web pages we made out there available to anybody, those were hugely accessible. Any documentation, any Florida rules, statutes, whatnot, we needed to make them accessible to anybody and everybody, because there's a big thing, especially in the state of Florida, is that we've got sunshine laws, which means anything and everything that's made has to be publicly available. So even if it's publicly available, it still requires it to be accessible through federal laws. So I've just always had accessibility like ingrained into anything and everything I've been doing. So it was one of these things where it was like, when I see something that's not accessible, it kind of just makes my skin crawl just a little.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, it doesn't take much effort to make something accessible. It's when you don't know what you don't know, that's when it gets to be a bit difficult, because you don't know that you haven't made something accessible. So I've always kind of wanted to put this group together. I was talking with Christine Kozaleski. She's going to murder me for butchering her last name. I was talking to her and Donna at the first Power Platform conference. Like, we should totally put together a user group specifically dedicated to this. And just the three of us got super busy, never had time to put it together. And so then Charles and Anya, they had reached out, I want to say back in April, May sometime, about wanting to put together a user group for UX and UI. And they thought it would be really cool for myself to get involved. And I was like, well, 100% down for it. Can we also include accessibility? And can we make this an official user group? Let's go through the whole process of getting it set up through Microsoft and whatnot. And so we did that, and we've been loving it ever since. We've had 2 already incredible presenters besides ourselves, because, Anya and Charles themselves are awesome presenters. I usually just try to go for whatever's going to make people excited at the time.
Yeah.
But, we've got Donna Sakar and Sean, oh my goodness, I forget his last name, like Astrakian?
Yeah, I don't know.
He's a new MVP, I think as of last month.
Oh.
And
yeah. Of course. Heck, I hope he doesn't hear me say I don't know who you're talking about. Had a full-on conversation with him the other day.
Oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got those 2 coming up here in a few days, and then some really exciting presenters for the next couple of months. So
nice.
I'm really excited about this group, because it gets more people like UI, UX, and accessibility at the forefront of their minds whenever they're building these applications. So, and it's not just like, we don't intend for the user group to be just how do you implement UI, UX, and accessibility for the end user. Like, we're also considering it from the perspective of a fellow developer who may have to come in after you. Like, making sure that you're also implementing stuff so that those users, the developers themselves, don't just go, what is happening here right now? So
how do you handle things like time zone?
So right now,
being that you're right across the globe.
Yeah, you and I were, I think, 10 hours difference, something like that.
It's 1 p.m. my time.
Yeah, and it's 9 p.m. my time.
9 p.m. Yeah, New York. Right?
Yeah.
New York time. But then you got London, which is right now is 2 a.m. And isn't Anna from London?
Yes, and Charles. UK? So Charles, I think, is in UK. Anya's in Scotland.
Yeah.
So, they're on London or British Standard Time, summertime right now.
Yep.
And
GMT,
so we've tried to stick to a general time zone.
Which is what? Like what time do you do it live? You use a group?
I have a whole set of notes here to keep track. So we're trying to go for, I think it's 3 p.m. UTC, or if the show's on a weekday, and 4 p.m. UTC if it's on a weekend.
Gotcha.
The only difference is we've got several really incredible speakers who are on your side of the globe that we're trying to get on the show. So we're actually going to change it up a little for December to get it in a time zone that's applicable for them. So it'll be a little later for us. And I say a little later, several hours later. But at least it'll be in a time zone that they're folks in Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, those areas, it makes more sense for them.
Are you ready to accelerate your career in the Microsoft ecosystem? The 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, created by Mark Smith, is your opportunity to create a personalized pathway to success. Join over 1,200 alumni from more than 70 countries who have achieved remarkable results, from promotions to new job opportunities. Take it from Nathan, who said, "Since completing the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, I've become an MVP in business applications and doubled my income." Or from Parves, who shares, "I've never felt as inspired or energized about my career as I do now." Sign up at arcor.nz365guide.com. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you use the code podcast, you'll get 10% off.
Nice. And it pretty much exploded, didn't it? When that user group was launched, didn't like 300 odd people sign up pretty much straight away?
So our very first meeting, we had over 300, I think 50 people who'd registered for that event, and over 150 people actually attended. And I was just like, okay, like, yes, this is great. Like, we were all kind of freaking out. We're like, oh my God, if we have 350 people on the first call, that's going to be a lot.
Yeah. Doesn't it show, though, there is an absolute gap in the market for this conversation?
100%.
It's interesting. I was talking with a PM at Microsoft, and he was on the design side of the things, and he was lamenting. He wished that for every developer engineer in Microsoft, there was a UI UX designer. The product would be absolutely amazing. But unfortunately, that ratio is not there.
Yeah.
And for years, it's funny, when you talked about usability before, I remember sitting in Seattle years ago having the whole discussion around what was then Dynamics CRM not being compliant to the various, just the simple usability, kind of like just the baseline of usability standards that were available.
Yeah.
And it's funny because in recent months, I have experienced usability, I suppose, a lot more from screen reader point of view. So something I've only found out really properly, I suppose, this year is that I do best from auditory listening, not from actual eyeball reading on screen. And so for example, I just had about a 50-page PDF document that I needed to go through. Typically in the past, I would be lucky to get to page 2 as a technical document. It was around geotechnical stuff, which is, of course, not my subject matter expertise area, which could get very dry quickly. I'm able to drop it into a screen reader and stay riveted for the full 50 pages because, I get it. I can see where this is going. It makes sense to me. And those really hard to pronounce words, the screen reader does really good.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about, getting tripped up on how does what is that saying? And why is my brain trying to go down here when I'm up here? And
But now I notice when I go to read websites, particularly blog sites, heaps of them from a screen reading perspective, whenever you come to like a picture in the content, it will then go and start reading out the HTML or CSS, which is just totally disruptive when you're like in the flow of whatever the post is about. And you just see how important it is. Like, that's something from visually nobody would see, any impediment in the design, yet from a usability perspective, I'm always like, shit, now I've and like when it's every like paragraph that there's a new image, wow, that's painful. Yeah.
Yeah. And now
so it's important.
Yeah. The screen readers now, you can actually tell them, skip over images or, only say, the important part of the specific image. Like, they've got all kinds of different tools now.
So mine does all that, but for some reason, if that site has not been like, sometimes it just injects it in.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. That would be rough. I must say that.
It's painful.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm a big advocate of both interface design and user experience design, because I think they're just so. One of the quotes I've used for years with the consultants I've worked with is that when long after you're gone from the project, someone is going to be using this interface, this experience you've created. And if they're cursing whoever invented this, that's bad, right? Yeah. That's bad, because what you might find quick and easy to do, and you checked a box that feature was added, or that line or that text or that checkbox or that drop down, whatever it was. But if you've not done it in a way that you've understood how this person's going to use it every day, you could have just added 5 minutes to their life, as in I sucked out of their life doing this because you didn't think about that.
Yeah. It was something that you just needed to get this thing done. You needed to tick that box to say this is in there. And you didn't think about how's the person going to use it. 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up in a situation where somebody's trying to create some other application to not have to deal with yours.
I'm interested to know how you handle conferences. You had the deal come together for you at conferences, and a couple of things. One, how do you prepare to speak at a conference? What's your strategy? Do you start with a blank slide deck, or, what is the process that you go through? Mm-hmm. And then what do you do at conferences? And what I mean by that is...
What fun extracurriculars do I have?
Not so much that, but like, how do you make sure that you come away from a conference feeling like, and it is that was so well worth going to. That was amazing. Like, I want to do that again. That's a no-brainer that I'm going to be back next year.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that.
So, all right. So presenting, it really just depends on the topic. So if I've already got a presentation that I've done on the topic, I might use bits and pieces of it. Sometimes I'll start from a blank slate and incorporate the overarching ideal, but not necessarily any of the previous content. And other times it's, this conference, they said they wanted this particular bit. So I'll just do that. Most of the time, I'm still working on trying to get selected for specific conferences. Power Platform Conference.
I thought you did get selected for it.
You didn't? I wish. I so wish I had gotten it. Wow. But it seems like, or I had heard some rumor that there was not as many community-specific sessions that were selected for this one.
What's community mean? As in non-Microsoft delivered sessions?
Yeah, it's more like people-based sessions versus technical sessions.
Gotcha. And so there was less selected for this event.
Yeah. And a lot of what the majority of the content that I put up is more people-based and community-based than it is technical-based. There are several sessions that I'll put in that are technical-based, but there's also several sessions in this particular conference that are almost the exact same as what I had put in.
Gotcha.
But they're from more prominent speakers, people that they're familiar with. So I'm like, Curtis, one of these days I'm going to get in there.
Are you still going though?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it'll be awesome.
I think probably the thing for me as far as like, what is it that I do at conferences that like I have to go back again? Probably the dinosaur situation that I started out with Chris Huntingford at Microsoft Power Platform Conference 2022.
Yep.
Got to run around as a dinosaur. It's kind of expected now. So shenanigans is a big thing. making sure that, I'm bringing the shenanigans, which
Nice.
It's been said that it's kind of expected. Like, if I don't have shenanigans, like at some point in time, that there's something wrong. I've been kidnapped, body snatched, something. So we'll definitely have the Velociraptor at this conference coming up.
Nice.
But yeah, no, it's really just about having fun and getting out there and seeing people and, just meeting and greeting.
Are you an attendee? And what I mean by that, you're going because of the sessions?
Yeah.
Or are you going because of the people?
I do go because of the sessions, but I go because of the people too. So it's kind of like, if I had to give it a weighted factor, it might be 67-33 or 50-50, somewhere in there. But I enjoy the people.
Yeah.
The people that are at the conferences, which is crazy because I am wholly an introvert. So when people are like, what? I'm like, no, I am an INFP. Like, I am an introvert very much. Yeah. Conferences do take it out of me. So when I get back from them, I'm like, please, nobody look for me or ask anything of me for the next month. Like, just please don't. But I think what happens is my ADHD pulls me into that extroverted type personality, if you will.
For a period of time.
Yeah. And it's enough to drain my social battery enough where I don't want to see anybody for a month. But I enjoy the dopamine rush that I get from attending him. So.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Final question I have for you is around the Power Platform as a whole, and where are you investing your time in the next 6 months? Like, where are you going deeper in the technology? Forget about what you're doing consulting for customers and things like that, but what areas are you drilling into and building your skill set out in at this time?
So there's a couple of things. I've been saying, I think for the last year and a half, I was going to go for the PL200, and I have yet to go for the PL200.
Okay.
So there's that, but mostly what I'm trying to do, it sort of started out as a consultant project, but turned into a pet project that's now also turned back into a consulting project, where I'm starting to do essentially a code review for Power Apps. Like, how do I tell from this particular Canvas app what I'm working with? So I definitely want to do the PL200 route, but I'm more concerned with, when I open up an app, what are the things that I should be concerned with? What are my data sources? How performant is my application? Where are the things, my gotchas and ha-has, and how is it that I can get this information out of here in a quick, easy, and reliable manner so that I can start to understand what I'm working with and be able to work with it a lot quicker.
Are you creating a tool to do this?
Funny enough, it's an Excel workbook. Excel was my first love, and I don't know that I will ever give it up. But yeah, I'm using Excel to do that.
It's a versatile tool.
It very much is. I was actually building quote unquote Power Apps in Excel before Power Apps was a thing.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. I have been known to play with tools outside the ecosystem. My current favorites that I'm learning at the moment are make.com, which is Power Automate, and a thing called Airtable. Airtable. So it's like Excel on steroids. So it's like an Excel that's also a database, but like massively API driven. So, I spent probably 8 hours yesterday on modeling stuff out and, using APIs and branching and various things to, build out automations, particularly automations that involve AI. So, but yeah, I could, in my mind, I'm like, you could be doing this in Power Automate and you could be doing this in Power Apps. But it's funny how, sometimes other tools can be quite attractive.
Oh, yeah.
They have their things that make them, I suppose, real super easy to use. And when you're just building personal projects and not for a customer, how you handle security is different.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because there's only one authenticated member. It's me. There's nobody else. And therefore, you handle things differently when it's, not client or public facing or any of those type of things.
Yeah. I will say, fun thing that I'm actually getting myself into right now is I'm learning electronics.
Wow, that's so cool.
So I found this organization called inventor.io, and they teach you basically how to incorporate Arduino boards, Raspberry Pis, you name it, how to incorporate that with Python, and I think C# is what they teach you. And they do it using storyline formats. So the one that I first got about a year and a half ago is called 30 Days Lost in Space. And the story is you're on a ship, you're on your way to meet up with the rest of the crew, and you've crash landed on a planet, and now you need to get your ship fixed in order to be able to meet back up with the rest of your crew. And it's like it teaches you how to make LED lights light up and how to do all these fancy crazy things, and
so cool,
all in an effort so that I can learn how to connect my Power Apps and Power Automates to the real world, my kiln that I have for making ceramics, so that I can actually have a fully automated kiln so that I can,
I love it,
make my ceramics how I want to make my ceramics.
That is so cool. I love that. Thank you, Kat. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If there's a guest you'd like to see on the show, please message me on LinkedIn. If you want to be a supporter of the show, please check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365 Guy. Stay safe out there and shoot for the stars.
Support for this episode comes from Justin Welsh's guide to finding your voice on LinkedIn. When I worked at Google, I never posted on LinkedIn because I didn't think anyone wanted to hear what I had to say. Then I took Justin's course, and it gave me the confidence to start sharing authentically. Check it out if you've been wanting to show up on LinkedIn but don't know how to start. Sign up using the link in the show notes.